Hello, everybody. I've been asked a couple times now to describe how I do this VROOM thing. So this VROOM thing originated in the Saturn groups, and what they did was basically just kind of turn up their speed settings really high so that they could get some prints done faster. And so far, from what we've seen, we're not really seeing a whole lot of detriment to the prints or anything. You know, if you get your settings right, speeding it up. I mean, it might wear out your FEP a little bit. It might reduce your screen time a little bit, but so far these haven't really shown a whole lot of wear and tear. So I do want to warn you, all these G-code settings, they're firmware kind of settings, and they're a little bit like EEPROM on an FDM printer, if you're familiar with that. Not exactly, but that's kind of the closest thing I've come up with. So there's again, I just want to make sure that everyone understands that I really don't fully understand 100% of these settings. I'm trying to work with the manufacturer of the main boards to get a comprehensive set of settings. But what I've done here is running on my printer right now, and this is the process I use to actually change that. So let's go ahead and dive right in. So the first thing you're going to do is get a file that has, I call it extract params.gcode. I've also called it test.gcode at one point. It doesn't really matter the name as long as it has this in the contents. It's just a text file. This is Notepad Plus, or Notepad Plus Plus. I'm sorry. And what you do is you'll save that to the USB, put it in your printer, go to the file, and then hit print. And what it's going to do, it's going to actually print the current settings to a file. And it's going to look something like this. So as you can see, all the comments here are in Chinese. And I mean, that's natural because obviously the native language of the developers was Chinese on this. So what I did was I put it in the Google Translate webpage, and it's pretty good. This is what popped out. It's mostly straightforward. Some of this stuff is a little confusing, but most of it's pretty understandable. So what I've got here is this is the translated version of the stock settings. And over here on this file, this is the, as you can see, the increased acceleration. So this is kind of the VROOM settings. So I'm going to pretty much go line by line, but a lot of these, I'm going to warn you, I don't know exactly what they mean. Some work with other settings, it seems. Some may contradict with other settings. Again, I'm working these details out because I really haven't figured everything out yet. So the first line here just kind of wipes everything out from the previous config. Obviously, you want to start with that, a fresh, clean slate. This is a hardware setting, so I did not change it. This is also a hardware setting. It's basically whether the plate, so like on maybe a Core XY, you're going to have the Z go up and down as opposed to where the actual head goes up and down. So we're not going to change that at all. This is what's called the starting speed. And from what I can understand, that's kind of like the basic speed that it's it's again, I'm not 100% sure, but it seems to be something to do with the slow and lift speeds. I think that this is the, I'm sorry, let me go back to the stock. This is the slow speed, and this is the, I'm sorry, this is the fast speed, and this is the slow speed. That combined with some other settings we're going to see below, I think is what sets those speeds. Again, we're going back to, I'm still figuring everything out. All right, so these speeds here are the slow and start and fast speeds, kind of like this, the basic or the fast, the standard setting, I guess. I'm going to go ahead and jack those up. So everything I've done here is going to be quite a bit faster. The next thing I changed is this acceleration. So that's basically the Z acceleration. And I went from 100 to 1,000. The next one's a hardware setting, not changing it. And that's the steps per millimeter, and that's basically based on what lead rod you have going on your printer. Most of them, you're not going to want to change this unless you've changed your Z rod and you have a different one. So this is where we start to get to the speeds. So the stock is max of Z of 4 and first 0 of 4. And if you look at what I've changed it to, I've gone all the way up to 50. So the maximum speed, I think, is kind of the overall fastest speed that you can possibly do on the printer. The first 0 speed is the fast lift speed. Then if I go here, the second 0 speed is the slow lift speed. And what I've done is I've just put them all at 50, and I'll just adjust it in the actual slicer. Now, this is where it gets a little confusing for the first time. So you can see here that there are actual settings for the slow and rise speed, or fast speed, rise speed. So I think that there's something to do with lifting and something to do with retracting, and I'm working the details out. So what I've basically done is just kind of put them both up to pretty high, and that way, you know, it's higher than anything I'm going to put in the slicer. And it, again, I've applied these to my printer; it still works. So here's another hardware setting. Basically, once it gets to the top 10 milliseconds, I'm not really worried about that. You know, after 1,000 layers, I've added 10 seconds to my print. If it lets everything settle, it's probably worth it. All right, these next three are a lot confusing because they really look like FDM settings. And what I've done is just kind of put them up high based on some reviews I've done online and looked at other people's configs on how they've sped up their printer. So that's where I've gone with that. I'm going to go ahead and scroll down a little bit here on both of them. All right, let's go back. So this is the main board fan control. So if you have it on -1, it's basically just on. So that's going to cool off your main board. And I don't want to change that. So we'll just go ahead and leave that. This next one is the LED control. So it's on 4, which is follow exposure. So that's logical to me. That basically, to me, means when it's exposing, have the LED on. I'm not sure why you'd ever want it all the way off. I guess maybe during some testing. Same with on. And I really don't know what follow model printing means. I'll try and do some testing, but honestly, it's one of the last things I care about. So I have not changed that one. And then this one is the this is the slow rising distance. So those speeds up there we talked about, this is how far a slow is compared to a fast. So you have this set at 3, but if your max lift is 5, then the next 2 are the fast speed, while the first 3 are the slow speed. So again, I'm not changing that one. This one's a hardware setting on the screen resolution. Don't want to change that. Hardware setting on this one. Same, not going to change it. So now we're getting to one that this is the max lift speed. So if you set it to 9 in your slicer, it's still only going to go 6. Again, that's what I think based on what I've seen. Did not change that one. So the projector baud rate, that's just the speed at which the data to the projector is going. Hardware setting, I'm not going to change it. Now this one is a little interesting. So this is the max Z height. Ours is 170 on the LD-002H. If you have some kind of extension on your printer, you can go ahead and change this to whatever your manufacturer of your extensions gives you. They'll give you this information. This one, I'm not sure, so I'm not touching it. Same with the next one here. And same with this one. They may have something to do with whether you can set Z equals 0. I'm not sure. When I do it, all I've done is change this one and set it to C equals 0. And you know, if it's 1, then it's basically saying go with the sensor. If it's 0, then you can actually set it. This next one here is the whether you have folder support or not. So you can have the files either in a flat system or you can have subfolders here. a hardware setting of the auto level. I'm leaving that one alone. This one here is with the fan in terms of the one on the LED. So you're going to want that to go with follow print, just like the one up here with the follow exposure. Kind of the same thing. You want the fan on whenever the exposure's on. You can always have it on. I think that's a little extra wear and tear you don't need on your fan. So this goes back to whether you can set Z equals 0. So I've never messed with it, and I've managed to get mine to set Z equals 0 with that setting I showed above. So I don't think I'd mess with this for now. This one shows how long the actual boot screen is going to show. And the boot screen, is when you see that Creality screen. I wouldn't mess with it. It's loading the firmware, so there's not a whole lot you're going to save there. You can set a screensaver if you set this to T1. I haven't found it really. I don't know. It's not useful for me. And this one, I haven't changed at all because I don't know what it does. So it goes back to the hardware setting. If it works, don't fix it, kind of thing. All right. So now that you've changed your settings from the stock here to the acceleration settings or VROOM settings, save that as a file. Save it to your USB. Go over to your printer and print it. That will set all these new, faster, higher speeds. If you ever want to go back to stock, go ahead and just print the one you extracted using the very first file we looked at. Go ahead and just print that, and it'll go back to the stock that you're expecting. So there you go. Have a good time. Let me know in the comments if you have any questions. I hope you enjoyed it, and thank you very much.